I still remember the exact moment my life turned upside down. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. I was sitting at my small apartment table, going through unpaid bills, wondering how I'd stretch my next paycheck, when my phone buzzed. A message from my father. We hadn't spoken in years, not since the day he told me, "You're on your own now, don't come back." My hands shook as I opened the message. Attached was a document, a bill, $512,000. At first I thought it was a joke, but it wasn't. It was detailed, painfully detailed. Every expense he had ever made on me. School fees, clothes, food, medical bills. At the bottom, one cold sentence: "Time to repay your debt." I felt like the ground disappeared beneath me. Was I just an investment to him? Not a son, not family, just a bill waiting to be paid. I didn't reply. I couldn't. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying memories I had tried so hard to forget. My father was never warm, never kind. Everything was transactional. If I got good grades, he'd say, "That's what I paid for." If I got sick, he'd complain about hospital costs. Love was never free in his house. The next morning, I got another message. "If you don't respond in 7 days, legal action will begin." Legal action? Against his own son? That's when something inside me broke. But I wasn't gonna beg. Not this time. I decided to visit the only person who had ever shown me real love, my grandmother. I hadn't told her anything about the bill yet. I didn't even know how to say it. When I reached her small old house, she opened the door with the same warm smile I remembered. "Why do you look so tired?" she asked. That was it. I broke down. I told her everything. Every word, every message, every dollar. She didn't interrupt me once. She just listened, quietly, calmly. When she finished, I expected her to be shocked, angry, heartbroken. But instead, she smiled, a strange, knowing smile, and said something I'll never forget. "So, he finally sent it." I froze. "What do you mean, finally?" She stood up slowly, walked to her old wooden cupboard, and pulled out a dusty envelope. Inside were documents, legal documents. She handed them to me and said, "Read." My heart started racing as I looked through the papers. Then I saw it, my grandmother's will. But not just that. There was another document attached. A contract signed years ago by my father. Turns out, years before I was born, my father had gone bankrupt, completely broke, and it was my grandmother who saved him. She paid off all his debts, rebuilt his business. But in return, he signed an agreement, a condition. Any financial claim made against direct family members will void inheritance rights. I read it again and again, just to be sure. My father had just made a financial claim against me. I looked up at my grandmother, my voice shaking. "Does this mean—" "Yes," she nodded. Then she added calmly, "He just disqualified himself." I couldn't believe it. All those years he treated everything like money, and now money was about to cost him everything. A week later, my father called me for the first time in years. His tone was different, nervous, desperate. "I think we should talk about that bill," he said. I stayed silent. Then he said something I never thought I'd hear. "Forget it. It was a mistake." A mistake? No, it wasn't a mistake. It was who he was. Before I could respond, he added, "Your grandmother, she spoke to me." I almost smiled. I could imagine exactly how that conversation went. Calm, sharp, final. A few days later, I received official confirmation. My grandmother had updated her will. Everything, her house, her savings, her investments, was now in my name. My father, he got nothing, not a single dollar. Weeks passed. Then one day, there was a knock on my door. I opened it, and there he was, my father. But he looked different, not powerful, not confident, just small. "I came to apologize," he said. I stared at him for a long moment. Then I asked, "For the bill or for everything?" He couldn't answer, because deep down, we both knew the truth. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I just said, "Some things can't be repaid," and closed it quietly. That day, I realized something important. Revenge isn't always loud. It isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just watching someone face the consequences of their own actions. And as for my grandmother, she didn't just protect me. She taught me something my father never could. Family is built on love, not invoices. I used to believe that no matter how broken a family gets, there's always a line no one crosses. I was wrong, because my father crossed it without hesitation. It started on a random Tuesday. I had just come back from work, exhausted, hungry, and mentally drained. Life wasn't easy, but I was surviving. Then I saw an email from my father. Subject line, "Outstanding balance, immediate payment required." I frowned. At first, I thought it was spam, but when I opened it, my stomach dropped. A full breakdown, every expense, every single dollar he had spent on me since childhood. Food, clothes, school, even birthday gifts. At the bottom, total $300,418, and a message, "You are now financially independent. It's time to return what you owe." I stared at the screen for a long time, waiting to feel something. Anger, shock, pain. But all I felt was emptiness. Because deep down, it made sense. That's exactly the kind of person he was. Growing up, nothing was ever free. If he bought me something, he reminded me. If he helped me, he kept score. I wasn't his child. I was his investment. I didn't reply. Instead, I printed the email, folded it carefully, and put it in my bag, because there was only one person I needed to talk to: my grandmother. Her house hadn't changed in years. Same wooden door, same soft smell of tea and old books, the same warmth I never found anywhere else. She looked at me once and knew something was wrong. "What did he do this time?" she asked quietly. I handed her the paper. She adjusted her glasses and started reading, slowly, carefully, line by line. I was waiting for her reaction, maybe anger, maybe disappointment, but instead, she sighed, like she had been expecting this. Then she said something strange. "He thinks he's being smart." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She stood up, walked to a drawer, and pulled out a small locked box. I had seen it before, but she had never opened it in front of me. Her hands were steady as she unlocked it. Inside were old documents, very old. She handed me one paper. "Read this," she said. It was a legal agreement signed over 25 years ago between her and my father. Apparently, before I was born, my father made a huge mistake, a failed business deal, massive debts. He was about to lose everything, and my grandmother saved him. She paid everything, every loan, every creditor. She rebuilt his life from scratch. But she wasn't naive. She knew his nature. So she made him sign a condition, a strict one. Any attempt to claim financial compensation from direct descendants will result in immediate forfeiture of all inherited assets. I looked up, stunned. Wait, does this mean? She nodded, calm, certain. Yes. I felt my heart racing. You're saying because he sent this? She finished my sentence. He just lost everything. I couldn't believe it. All those years, he calculated everything, measured everything in money. And now, that same mindset had trapped him. But does he know? I asked. She smiled slightly. Oh, he will. 2 days later, my phone rang. My father. For the first time in years. I picked up. Hello? Silence. Then a voice I barely recognized. Not strong, not commanding, nervous. He said, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I almost laughed. A misunderstanding? I repeated. Yes, that email, it was just symbolic. I didn't mean. I cut him off. No, you meant it. He went quiet. Then he said, Your grandmother contacted me. Of course she did. And? I asked. He exhaled heavily. I didn't realize that clause still applied. That clause, the one he signed, the one he forgot, the one that just cost him everything. For the first time in my life, I heard fear in his voice. What do you want? I asked. There was a long pause. Then he said, I want to fix this. But some things don't get fixed. A week later, everything became official. My grandmother updated her will. Every property, every saving, every asset was transferred to me. My father? Nothing. He tried to fight it, legally, emotionally, even personally. One evening he showed up at my door, unannounced. He looked older, weaker, like life had finally caught up to him. I made a mistake, he said. I leaned against the doorframe, waiting. I shouldn't have sent that email. I shook my head slowly. The mistake, I said, was treating your own child like a debt. He didn't respond, because there was nothing to say. After a moment, he asked quietly, Is there any way to undo this? I thought about it, for a second. Then I said, No. Not out of revenge, but because some lessons only come with consequences. He nodded slowly, turned around, and walked away. And just like that, the man who tried to charge me for my existence paid the highest price. That night, I went to visit my grandmother. She poured me tea, like always, calm, peaceful. Do you feel better? She asked. I thought about it. I don't feel revenge, I said. She smiled. Good. Then what do I feel? I asked. She looked at me and said, Freedom. And she was right.